Hey guys, I am the MMA Breakdown, and we have to do predictions for UFC 209 Woodley versus Thompson 2. The co-main event has been scratched. Tony Ferguson versus Habib Nurmagomedov, which was going to be for the interim lightweight title, which I didn't even realize until I saw that the fight was scrapped. But that's just extremely depressing. It really brings the card down for me, which I was really hyped for going into it. But that co-main event to me was the real main event of the card, and it was just an incredible matchup. It seems like they were trying to book that forever, and we were so close, one day away. But yeah. Nurmagomedov, the weight cut hurt him, and hopefully it still happens later down the road. But it's such a competitive matchup. Really, a really tough one to analyze and to pick a winner. But yeah, that's just extremely depressing. But yeah. On the UFC Fight Pass prelim card at bantamweight, Albert Morales versus Andre Soukhamthath. I'm going to take Morales here, even though I've only seen his two UFC fights, and Soukhamthath, I've only seen two of his fights. I believe his most recent ones against Cody Nordby and Kin Moy. But yeah, I have to take Morales, who was competitive against Alejandro Perez and nearly choked out Thomas Almeida in his last fight. After getting rocked, he still managed to hit a takedown, and as Almeida got back to his feet, transitioned to the back standing and almost had the choke. And that, to me, just counts for more than what I saw from Andre Soukhamthath, who in his two most recent fights seems to have fought a fairly low level of competition, or at least opponents who could not be competitive with him. Cody Nordby was really committing to failed takedown attempts, was stuck underneath Soukhamthath's sprawl and just kind of stayed there, and then as the fight went on, was content to go for heel hooks off of his back, and just seemed like a pretty defenseless fighter who put himself in pretty bad positions. And then Kin Moy, Soukhamthath, I think it was a flying knee they knocked him out with. But yeah, it didn't seem that Moy was really offering up too much resistance. And Soukhamthath seems like a technical striker, decent athlete, but not particularly high volume and not particularly dangerous. And actually, it was Cody Nordby that he knocked out with the flying knee. Kin Moy is a knee and punches TKO, but well, he did get those two finishes, but it doesn't seem to be really a big power striker. Whereas Morales was going toe to toe with Almeida and Perez. And that's just already there. That's a lot higher level of competition than Moy and Nordby. So I'm going to go with Morales, and I just don't see Soukhamthath having the volume or being able to get in a brawl with Morales. So I think I'm going to take Morales by decision. All right, at light heavyweight, Tyson Pedro versus Paul Craig. I think this is a great fight. I really liked what we saw from Paul Craig against Luis Henrique de Silva in his last fight. Really showed a complete set of skills. Won pretty much in every facet of that fight. showed good dirty boxing, strong clinch, and then on the ground for light heavyweight, is pretty active off of his back and has a pretty capable submission game off his back, and did eventually submit Luis Henrique de Silva. I think that Paul Craig has the more complete skill set here. Tyson Pedro seems to be much more, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but really has one big weapon and doesn't really do much else. And that's also on the ground, where when he gets opponents there, gets into mount pretty quickly, and from there has pretty devastating ground and pound. I would say definitely has the better ground and pound of the two fighters here, and finishes fights more convincingly and earlier than Craig does. I think he has a couple of wins by rear naked choke before the UFC, and obviously withstood a big shot from one of the most dangerous finishers, definitely at light heavyweight, maybe in all of the UFC, against Khalil Roundtree, and was able to get him down and submit him. And Paul Craig, he had a fight against, who was it? Carl Moore, where he eventually won by submission, but in that first round went for a judo throw, ended up on his back, and from there just got dominated on the mat. Moore had him in mount, was able to take his back, and came close with a rear naked choke. And I think that Tyson Pedro, if he gets an opportunity like that, he's going to finish Craig. Like I said, a speed chess grappler when he is given an opportunity. However, if he doesn't finish Craig within the first couple of rounds, I think Craig's complete skill set will take over. He's also a solid top position grappler. And with his arm bars and triangles from his back, his active guard, I think that if the fight goes to the third round, I think Craig will probably take over there. But I'm going to take Tyson Pedro because Craig seems a bit wild, a little bit submission happy, whereas Pedro, as I've said several times now, really capitalizes on openings on the ground. So I think Pedro is going to take his back and submit him. So I'll take Pedro by second round submission. All right. And on to the FS1 prelims at heavyweight, Mark Godbeer versus Daniel Spitz. Mark Godbeer, I think, should have a huge experience advantage compared to Daniel Spitz. He's fought on the big show. He's fought on Bellator and has knocked several fighters out on Bellator. And Daniel Spitz, a sick jitsu fighter, and wasn't able to find a whole lot of tape on him. I did see his fight against Cabbage Carrera and one of his amateur fights on YouTube. That's all I could find. But he just looks like a completely average, green, raw fighter, and I have no idea why he's in the UFC. I think he only has 5 fights on his pro record. But Mark Godbeer, I've not been impressed with those guys that he's knocked out in Bellator, even though he should definitely be the way more capable striker here, and the striker with way more power. I don't know any of these guys he's knocked out. Stuart Austin, Paul Taylor, Thomas Denham. Thought he looked terrible against Justin Ledet, getting instantly taken down and subbed by a boxer. new to MMA. I thought that was a bad look. And then, just looking at his record, the most notable thing is his loss to Czech Congo. So I'm not really feeling Mark Godbeer, even though he should, on paper, have a big experience advantage and a big technical advantage. But I think I like Spitz's hustle to get the job done here. It's just kind of a feeling. I haven't been impressed with Godbeer, and Spitz seems like he pushes a high pace. He can get in the clinch position. Not really an active wrestler, but saw him hit a few takedowns in those fights I mentioned. I just think he's going to find a way to outwork Godbeer here, who seems to really not do much except wait for an opportunity to land a big power shot. And he's not a combination striker. He's definitely nothing close to a wrestler or grappler, and actually has struggled being taken down by his opponents. So I'm going to take Spitz to win a decision, just basically outworking Godbeer. But it's a really weird fight, and at least in terms of experience, seems really lopsided to me. I mean, Spitz fought Cabbage Carrera 2 fights ago, and I'm really not sure why he's filling in for Todd Duffy, that's why. But really weird matchup, but just haven't been impressed with Godbeer enough to take him, so I'm going to take Spitz. At bantamweight, Yuri Alcantara versus Luke Sanders. I'm going to take Alcantara here. I do think there's a chance Sanders wins because Alcantara has had a few fights where he's been inconsistent, and he can be cracked. Wilson Heiss dropped this guy in the first round of their fight, and then had a really bizarre loss, especially in hindsight, to Frankie Saenz, where he was outboxed and out-wrestled, and Saenz' wrestling really nullified his submission game off of his back. But rewatching Sanders' fight against Maximo Blanco, he still got hit a lot early in that fight, and on the ground, Blanco was really able to control him and control his back in portions of that fight before Sanders clipped him. So Sanders, I do think, has the power and is explosive enough to tag Alcantara. But other than that, I think Alcantara will pick him apart at range. Alcantara seems to really just be perfecting the skills he already has, being a really lethal range striker. He has great speed with his kicks and his punches, and is also really deadly on the ground, very aggressive and very quick to lock up a submission. So I think he's going to submit Sanders, possibly hurt him on the feet first, but not one of my most confident picks. I do leave that chance for Sanders to win an upset, but I'm going to take Alcantara by submission, maybe second round or first. At featherweight, Mirsad Bektic versus Darren Elkins. This will be my only true confident pick on the card, and I'm going to take Bektic. This guy just seems like a title contender in the making, and he hasn't fought any great competition yet, but he's looked really solid. He has a sick wrestling game, showed submission ability for the first time in the UFC in his last fight against Russell Doan, showed devastating, vicious ground and pound against Lucas Martins. And while Darren Elkins is a proven, hard-nosed, gritty wrestler who will just grind you out and has really good cardio, I think Bektic is just a better athlete, and that's really been where Elkins has struggled. On the feet, I would give Bektic the advantage. Elkins, has a servable striking game, but it's still pretty. It's kind of awkward and stiff. Bektic really hasn't spent a lot of time on the feet, but I remember early in the Martins fight, used his striking to close the distance and take him down. But on the ground, Elkins might be the better scrambler, the better maybe pure wrestler, but that top control from Bektic, I just see him being a better athlete and just being stronger than Elkins and being more capable of just holding a position and dominating, whereas Elkins is a guy who I think relies on scrambles more and relies on an opponent kind of like Skelly or Pepe who's willing to really scramble, go for kind of compromised positions to give him that opportunity to hold them down, whereas Bektic, I think, imposes that on his opponents better. So I'm going to take Bektic by decision. Elkins is a proven vet, and I think it'll be competitive, but I think Bektic's wrestling will prove to be better. So Bektic by decision. At heavyweight, Marcin Tybura versus Luis Henrique. This is a tough fight. I see this as a pick'em. Luis Henrique, a really aggressive striker and wrestler. Not very dangerous though, and seems to really fight with a lot of energy, a lot of output, but to not much effect. Couldn't finish Dmitry Smolyakov, which is concerning because Smolyakov was pretty much defenseless in that fight. Got taken down at will, and Henrique, I felt should have been able to submit him, and then we saw him just get absolutely destroyed by Cyril Asker, who's a much smaller fighter than him. And against Christian Colombo, you got the submission in the second round. But as a really old fighter who probably shouldn't be in the UFC. And actually it was a third round finish against Colombo. So I think Henrique is not really as dangerous as he should be, even though he is a solid wrestler and pretty good at closing the distance with his striking. If this stays on the feet, I think Marcin Tybura could knock out Henrique. Had a really nice head kick knockout in his last fight against Victor Pesta. But rewatching that fight, Pesta really wasn't doing much to him, kind of standing in front of him. And I think Henrique is a way more persistent wrestler and a better one than Pesta. And anyone who gets outboxed for 3 rounds thoroughly by Timothy Johnson, to me that doesn't really indicate that they're a very technical striker, even though that's what Tybura is kind of billed as. But the biggest thing is that I just think Tybura doesn't do enough. Seemed content to get outboxed by Timothy Johnson, and then against Victor Pesta was really taking his time and really taking his time against a guy who should not have really been that hard to read. So I think Henrique is going to be aggressive in his face and probably take him down. So yeah, I like Henrique here. I'm going to say to win a decision. If it stays on the feet, Tybura could knock him out. We saw Henrique get knocked out by Ngannou. So his chin might be a little suspect, but I think Henrique has a much higher work rate. So Henrique. All right, onto the main card at heavyweight: Alistair Overeem versus Mark Hunt. This is an awesome matchup, and it's kind of too bad it's kind of buried on this card, and especially with the co-main event falling out, I think makes this fight even less noticeable, just because that it brought the whole card down. But Overeem versus Hunt, a really great matchup. Overeem for a long time was just kind of the punching bag of the heavyweight division. Anyone and everyone was knocking him out, and against one of the biggest power punchers and against one of the most technical kickboxers in Hunt, and technical in the sense that he's a very skilled striker, even if he doesn't have a whole lot of tools as far as a jab or a varied striking game, but landing his big uppercuts and overhands, he's very technical. But for a guy who's been knocked out as much as Overeem has and as easily, it seems like this would be Hunt's fight to lose. But this new extremely defensive style that Overeem has been employing has been really impressive. He's really committed to staying on the outside and avoiding those power shots from his opponents. And he kind of got baited into a brawl against Miocic, ended up getting knocked out, but he still saw his power in that fight. He had a moment where he dropped Miocic, but I just think Hunt, a guy who's been aging, a guy who couldn't create enough separation to stay away from Lesnar long enough to knock him out, who couldn't close the distance on Lesnar, having been away from the sport as long as Lesnar did. I didn't think that was all that impressive. And when Hunt's fought, the more technical strikers like Verdum, even though he scores that early knockdown, those guys who have more tools, Verdum landed that knee, not even a jump knee, and it was perfectly placed and just put Hunt out. Junior Dos Santos, Hunt could not walk him down and close the distance. Dos Santos landed that head kick, and I see Overeem just having way more tools at range, keeping Hunt on the outside and aging. Mark Hunt, who's been taking more damage, not in his recent fights, but over the years, the accumulated damage. I think that Overeem's going to be able to touch him up a lot from range, and probably land a well-timed knee or uppercut, something, and knock Hunt out. So I'm going to take Overeem by knockout. But as we saw in the Nelson fight, even when Overeem's really ahead on the scorecards, any shot that connects on his chin can put him down, and he was really against the ropes in that third round against Nelson. So Hunt could easily knock him out, but I just really like the new defensive, accurate range style from Overeem that we've seen recently, and I think Hunt is just too unathletic to close the distance and put hands on him. So I'm going to take Overeem by knockout. All right, at women's strawweight, Amanda Cooper versus Cynthia Calvillo. This is an interesting fight, and I really like what I saw from Calvillo in a couple of her fights. She only has 3 pro fights, but her most recent fight against Montana Stewart, I thought was really impressive. She is a snake on the ground. Does a great job of riding her opponent, controlling the back. She took the back at one point and was working a choke. And as the fight went on, she found her range on the feet too. Had a pretty snappy jab. Was able to land that and get out. But on the ground, she does seem like a really a pretty high level grappler as far as women's MMA goes. And that's where we've seen Cooper really struggle. I thought that fight against Elmos was ugly. Cooper did have the bigger moments on the ground and really was able to steal a decision because she was able to get in mount and land some good ground and pound. But for the majority of the rounds, it was Elmos controlling her on the ground, and she dropped her in that first round. Cooper's a decent boxer, from what we've seen of her on Tough. She has skills on the ground. She was working an armbar against Elmos at the end of the round, and I think the first or second round, and submitted Lanchana Green on Tough. But her game seems pretty clunky. She doesn't seem to be great at transitioning between her striking and wrestling. And also Tatiana Suarez completely dominated her with wrestling and positional grappling on the ground. So I think that Calvillo has the style, has the grappling to kind of outclass her on the ground. So I have to take Calvillo. I think Cooper's a fighter who was semi-impressive on Tough and just doesn't really have a good enough game, isn't really dominant enough in any facet to really be successful in the UFC. Really struggled against Elmos, who did not do well, and I think she only had one other fight in the UFC against De Randamie, but not a great opponent, and really had a hard time with her. So I'm going to take Calvillo. I think I'm going to take her to win by submission. All right, at middleweight, Rashad Evans versus Dan Kelly. Awesome fight, really weird fight, and old man Dan Kelly, just a guy you got to root for. I'm pulling for him every time since that Shoeface knockout. Still one of the craziest things I've ever seen in the UFC. But the logical pick is Rashad Evans, not just for his resume. You can't even compare their career accomplishments, but the skills matchup. Evans, more fluid striker and grappler, more fluid between striking and grappling. Even in that Teixeira fight, I thought Evans still was moving well early, even though he just kind of got pretty easily knocked out once Teixeira closed in on him. But I just can't trust Evans at this point. Did not look good against Bader. Did not look good against Teixeira, and Kelly doesn't have anywhere near the level of striking technique that either Bader or Teixeira has. And Kelly is not a great wrestler. He is an Olympic judoka, though. And he has shown those skills in the UFC, not against anyone the level of Evans, but and especially when he gets top position, he is strong there. I think he has this kind of old man strength combined with his judo background that makes him really dominant from top position. But on the feet, Evans, like I said, logically should have the advantage. I mean, even against Kamosi, Kelly struggled to close the distance and was eating shots, struggling with the length of Kamosi, and it's a very different matchup from Evans. But on paper, Evans should be the favorite, but like I started to say, I can't trust Evans, and has always kind of been a head case when you think of the fights against Rogerio Nogueira, where he was just completely unwilling to pull the trigger, and I think his chin is starting to go. I think we saw that in the Teixeira fight, and Dan Kelly. He's not a knockout artist, but he can put guys away. He put Shoeface away. No one expected that. And after surviving, getting his back taken, and having to survive in that position for I think it was a couple minutes at the end of that first round, against a talented, strong grappler. So I'm not sold that Evans can out wrestle him, or even really outstrike him. Evans is the better athlete, but I just think Kelly has that old man strength. He's dogged, real tough, and I just think eventually Kelly's going to be able to touch him, and I think it's going to hurt Evans. I do. He's just too up there in age at this point. Younger than Dan Kelly, but way older in fight years. But I don't trust Evans's athleticism or his chin at this point. Dan Kelly's really been on a roll, and I don't think Evans is going to be able to survive the hardest shots of Kelly, and I certainly don't see Evans finishing him, so I think Kelly will get those opportunities, so I have to take Kelly by second round knockout. Alright, at lightweight, Lando Vannata versus David Teymur. I think this is a great matchup. I think everyone's really writing off Teymur here. Vannata's really gotten, his stock has really risen with his really competitive fight, short notice fight against Tony Ferguson, as well as his most recent really impressive wheel kick knockout over John Makdessi. But Teymur, this guy's been pretty impressive too, and his opponents, you can't compare their skill level to the guys Vannata has fought in the UFC, but he's looked really good against both Martin Svensson and Jason Novelli. Teymur is a very clean kickboxer, really focused on keeping the fight at range. And I think that's going to be a very different matchup for Vannata. Very different from Ferguson, who's a guy who was perfectly willing to just throw caution to the wind and go toe-to-toe with Vannata. And, both guys almost knocking each other out at several points in that fight. And I think Makdessi was too unathletic to survive against Vannata, was kind of standing in front of him and giving Vannata those opportunities to read him and employ all of his flashy and orthodox strikes. And Teymur, I think, is going to really be putting volume on Vannata. He's really going to be focused on controlling range. Teymur has good kicks, good leg kicks that he showed against Svensson. And Vannata was eating a lot of body kicks against Ferguson. And Teymur has shown really good finishing ability in his last couple of fights as well with his hands. Had a really good timed uppercut against Svensson. And then against Novelli, really put a lot of volume on him, was able to put him away. Vannata's a very, has one of these new age styles, kind of like a McGregor or someone like that. Really flashy, but really effective with those techniques. But find a really technical kickboxer, I don't trust that. That style can just trump all other styles, and I think this is the most technical kickboxer, most technical striker, Muay Thai kickboxer that he's fought. I just think you get a guy like that against a guy who's really only looking for a few techniques, who's only looking for the flash. I think that's going to give him a lot of problems. So I think Teymur will win a decision with volume. I think he's going to be defensive enough to stay out of trouble. But I've really been impressed with Vannata, against Ferguson and against Makdessi. So if he's able to do the same thing to Teymur, it wouldn't surprise me. But I just think this is too different a style, and Teymur has looked really good, really technical. So I'm going to take Teymur to win an upset decision here. And then the main event at welterweight, the title fight, Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Thompson. After that first fight, I came away from that fight just thinking that Woodley would totally own the rematch, because he was very dominant in all three phases of the game. On the feet, even though he lost the volume and maybe the points battle, he was the only one to seriously hurt the other fighter and really threaten the finish. Brutally dropped Thompson and almost had him out of there. Before he knocked down Thompson, he dominated him on the ground when he took him down. Big strength advantage. That was like a boy versus a man. Thompson was just not... He wasn't skilled enough with his grappling. Wasn't good enough to get back to his feet off of his back. And he also just wasn't strong enough. So got outclassed on the ground. And then also Woodley threatened the finish with the guillotine. Had that nasty guillotine on Thompson that I thought was definitely going to put him out. So really had extremely dominant moments in several different facets of the game, and had the only dominant moments of the fight. So I really think that Woodley, to win, all he has to do is just do what he did in the first fight, but do it more. I think if he really focuses on his wrestling, goes for more takedowns, he can get Thompson down and really make him struggle. If he turns it into a wrestling fight, if he tries to clinch with Thompson a lot, Woodley's always lacked volume and has had trouble pulling the trigger, especially against more technical fighters. But if he could let his hands go and touch Thompson more, I think he could hurt him sooner than he did in the first fight. But in a rematch like this, if you ask me who I thought was capable of making the bigger adjustments, I would have to say it's the guy who's the more technical striker with the better footwork, who's better at managing distance, and that's Stephen Thompson. And also kind of an X factor here, probably a stupid thing to say on my part, but I I don't know what you guys think, but I kind of feel like Tyron Woodley making the comments about race and saying how he was robbed in the first fight, that he clearly won that fight, which he didn't. I thought the fight was absolutely a draw. And just talking about the UFC saying they're not promoting him because they're racist or whatever he said. I feel like Thompson's attitude is just been he's just had tunnel vision. He's totally focused on this fight and winning that title. Seems very determined, very hungry to me, and that could translate inside the cage. So that's something I'm considering here, but I don't know. It's hard to see Thompson just having the power. I think he can throw more volume, but it wasn't enough to hurt Woodley the first time. And unless Woodley just makes an error and really leaves an opening for Thompson to capitalize on, I don't see Thompson being able to finish Woodley. So then I think it becomes the same thing that happened in the first fight, where Thompson can outpoint him, can control distance, but Woodley just needs to land a big shot, and he has the power advantage. I think Thompson is not as durable as we may have thought. Also remember that Ellenberger dropped this guy early in their fight, so I think Thompson just has those physical limitations, the durability, the lack of power, that he can't really overcome, even if he's a lot more technical. So I think this fight's gonna pretty much go how the first one did. It's gonna play out pretty similarly. Thompson having the volume edge and winning on points, but Woodley having those big moments, either hurting Thompson, taking him down. And Woodley, is very explosive. I'd say he even has the speed advantage when he does close the distance and let his hands go. So, another physical advantage for Woodley, and the strength advantage, on the ground. So, I'm going to go with Woodley, but, Woodley's been a head case, losing those fights to Jake Shields and, what was the other one? Rory McDonald, where he's just totally unwilling to pull the trigger, really gets backed up and really struggles with the distance and just has his back to the fence the entire fight. If Thompson, has really found some holes that has really made some big improvements from the first fight, and Woodley's head is not in this, I could see Thompson coming out and really pushing Woodley back and really having a big mastery of the range in this fight, and putting a lot of volume on Woodley and possibly knocking him out. It's a tough one considering all of the variables, even the outside of the cage ones that I mentioned. But I'm gonna go with Tyron Woodley to win a decision. Those are my picks for UFC 209. You guys, thank you for watching. Again, I'm sorry for another late video. It just happens sometimes, but it will get better. Follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. And let me give you my most confident picks for this card. Really, I only have one confident pick for this card, and that's Bektic over Elkins. That's the only one where I feel reasonably confident in my pick. And all the other ones I honestly see as kind of pick'ems, or they're just I see too much of a chance of the guy winning who I'm not picking to win to say that I'm confident in my pick. But if you forced me to put money on 4 other fights, I would go Albert Morales, Yuri Alcantara, Tyson Pedro, and Tyron Woodley. Alright guys, that's it. Thank you, and I will be back hopefully very soon with picks for the next event, UFC Fortaleza, Belfort versus Gastelum. Thanks guys, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.